Hello, this is Kevin Kalmus with Nested Knowledge, here to show you how to allocate studies in AutoLit. First, a few notes. This is an enterprise-only feature, so if you do not see the allocation module within your settings page, what you likely need to adjust is your tier. Secondly, I'm certain the question will arise, how are studies assigned to users when allocation is not turned on? Well, our assignment method is first in screening. Studies are given to you in the order that they come back from the search, or once the inclusion probability model is turned on, in the order of relevance. Then, for tagging, meta-analytical extraction, and critical appraisal where relevant, studies are ordered by when they are included. So the first study included will be queued for tagging first. Now, what is the goal of allocation? You should use allocation if and only if your goal is to assign specific studies to specific users within your nest. To turn it on is quite simple. You just toggle it on, but ensure that you've selected all modes throughout the software because this can impact your allocation. For instance, you can see here that I've configured 2-pass dual screening so that I have abstract and full text with adjudication at each stage, and I will allocate for each of those processes. Then you will notice that an allocation item has appeared in my menu. I simply click this and I get an inspector-like page where I'm going to be able to filter and then assign studies to individual reviewers for each module within the software. Let's start with reviewer level abstract screening. I can simply begin with any filter. That can be a publication date filter. It can be a filter by some content within the studies. In this case, let's search for NSCLC within titles. All right, it looks like 130 studies contain NSCLC, and let's assign those to Jade. This will change our Venn diagram so that we now have studies that are assigned to Jade and then those that are as of yet unallocated. Once I have assigned some studies, it's actually quite easy to allocate using the Venn diagram circles. So you can see here I've clicked on these unallocated studies and I can very easily assign those to Jeff. And now, voila, every single study within our reviewer level abstract screening is assigned. You will note that I now have a progress indicator here. This is an open circle indicating that I have started, but not yet finished reviewer level abstract screening. But you may say all studies are allocated to either Jade or Jeff. But we need to remember that reviewer level screening is a dual process, so I actually need to assign every study to 2 reviewers. I can do this one of 2 ways. I can either simply click on those studies I've assigned to one of my existing reviewers and assign it to another, say assign every study that Jade is screening to John as well, and you can now see that all 130 studies are assigned to the 2 of them. Or I can add a new filter. So let's say that I wanted to do a publication date filter where all studies that were published before 2016 are allocated. And let's allocate those 173 records to Carl. You can see here that now we do not have a nicely split set of studies that are Jade and John against Jeff and Carl. Instead, Carl has been assigned to some studies that overlap with both. That does not hurt. In fact, wherever there are 3 reviewers assigned, any 2 of those 3 reviewers can screen those studies before they move forward. But if I'd rather cleanly separate my screening into John and Jade for some studies and Jeff and Carl for the others, I do have the ability to deallocate studies. So in this case, I can simply click on those studies that are assigned to Carl, and I can deallocate those from him. Once I've done so, you can see that it resets, and I can now assign, as I initially intended, to have Carl and Jeff review the same studies here. So I want to allocate every study that was assigned to Jeff, also to Carl, hit confirm, and we can now see that every single study is assigned to 2 reviewers, and indeed, our progress indicator now tells us with this filled circle that reviewer level abstract screening is complete. Now, the next step is not actually to move forward and assign adjudication. This is because you can only allocate a study once it has reached the appropriate module. So you can only allocate to tagging once studies are included. You can only allocate to full text screening once studies have been advanced. And you can only allocate to adjudication once studies have been screened by 2 underlying reviewers. So what I now need to do is have Jeff, Carl, Jade, and John work on their screening activities at the abstract level, and then come back and complete allocation for the next module when this module is complete, or at the very least, when some studies are available. So we've covered allocation, the allocation module, but what does this look like for users when they actually come in? So if there is a reviewer who has no records assigned to them, they will get this message that tells them that no remaining records are allocated, despite the fact that many are still available for screening. In that case, that user can still screen from Inspector, but is otherwise unable to participate in the screening activity unless you go back and change your allocations. Let's allocate some studies to me just so that we can show what that page looks like. All right, so actually let's allocate a smaller number. Say let's make myself the third reviewer along with Carl and Jeff. So once I've allocated those studies to myself, we can go to abstract screening, and we can see that though there are 230 studies in total within this nest, I get my own personal progress tracker within the navigation panel where I have screened 0 out of 100. And now it will be my responsibility to include or advance these records until I reach 100, or in this case, until Carl or Jeff also do so, to the point where every single study that was assigned to us has had 2 underlying screens. At that point, every record will have moved forward to adjudication, and we should jump back into the allocation page and allocate those to our adjudicator. Adjudicators can only be administrators, which is indicated by the little A next to our name. So you can see here, I am an administrator. No one is eligible for adjudication unless they have this A next to their name. Otherwise, every step within the software should be available to all users. Last note, as I said briefly earlier, if you need to work around the allocation system, the way to do so is from Inspector. By that I mean, despite studies not being allocated to me, I can come into Inspector, click in, and add an individual screening reason, advance this. I can, if I'm an administrator, I can adjudicate, and of course I can move forward to the full text level, since Inspector is for completing actions that are outside of the existing queues for each module. Lastly, if I turn allocation off, it does not delete my allocations, but it will return all studies that have that have not been completed yet into the queues. So if I jump back into settings and turn off allocation, it will simply return to our previous method of assigning studies. Often, if you want to use allocation for screening or similar and then turn it off for tagging, you can do so and expect that there will be no harm to your studies, only a change to your workflow. That should cover allocation, and thanks so much. See you on the next video.